Welcome back to Inspector Toolbelt Talk, everyone. We have on a repeat guest, Tony from Villa Property Inspections out in sunny California. How are you, Tony?
Great, Ian. Nice to be back. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic in a new office. I just moved all my stuff into a new office, but I hear you have had an exciting week already, kind of the standard of the home inspection industry.
It is. There's always fires to put out. One of my guys was doing a balcony inspection yesterday and put his foot right through the floor of the balcony floor, and it then fell over. And so he got hurt. Luckily, nothing serious. But there's always some kind of fire to put out, and it's typically on a Monday.
Yeah, typically. And, it's more important that he's okay, but it sounds like he was doing a good thorough balcony inspection.
Yeah, that's taking it to a new level.
Yeah, exactly. How many holes did you put in
Yeah,
balconies today?
yeah.
But Tony, I'm really glad to have you on because one of the things I like about you is you think outside the box. A lot of us like to say we think outside the box. Even I like to say that about myself. But in reality, when somebody actually thinks outside the box, we stand back and go, "Oh, I never even thought of that." That's what I like about you. You take the box, you expand the box, you move the box, and you think outside the box. So I like that. But today we're going to be talking
Thanks.
about, well, yeah, we're going to be talking about basically adding different verticals onto our business or expanding into them or widening our own vertical. Vertical being the business that we work in. So tell me what you mean by that. What that means to you, and what are some things maybe that you have done.
Well, I hear and I've done other inspectors talking about doing different services, particularly when things slow down. We're coming into a slower season right now, and everybody's talking about. I had a Zoom call earlier today with some other inspectors, and everybody's talking about this time of year. What can we do to keep our guys busy? And what can we expand to? What kind of services can we offer? And one particular conversation was about a completely different venture that is somewhat related to the inspection industry and somewhat not. And so that's where some of the ideas that I had mentioned to you came from, is looking for those opportunities. And I think we spoke about it in the last time I was here as well, looking for those opportunities and seizing them and being prepared for these opportunities that may come. And so I'm sure we'll touch on that right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that you talked about was, well, in your state you have a contractor's license. In New York, we don't, unless you're in New York City, which I'm not. And many other states don't have contracting licensing. But you mentioned having some certifications or licensing in there if it's available. Why has that worked out well for you?
I've been lucky in that I've been a contractor for 25 years now. Right around the same time I got into home inspection 27 years ago, but I haven't done construction in many years. But I maintain my contractor's license. One, for credibility. A lot of clients, particularly in the commercial industry, they like seeing that you're a licensed contractor. And two, it opens up doors that normally would not open for you unless you had a contractor's license. And for example, here in California, a law passed a couple of years ago that all, just similar to Florida, that all balconies in apartment buildings and condominiums have to be inspected. And so last year was probably a record-setting year for us because of balcony inspections, which really boosted our revenue. This year, well, at the end of last year, they extended the deadline to get your balconies inspected. And so right around October last year, the numbers dropped because everybody said, well, I could just wait till next year. So everybody waited till next year. So this year, last year, we thought, this is a unicorn year. There's no way we're going to do this again. And sure enough, this year we're looking to not only meet those numbers, but actually exceed those numbers based on the additional revenue that we have from balcony inspections, that and commercial inspections. But balcony inspections we were able to take advantage of solely because we have a contractor's license. And this is where I had a little bit of advantage over fellow home inspectors, is that I had the contractor's license. I was able to seize the opportunity, and it was preparation meeting opportunity, which I know we talked about before.
Yeah, and basically better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it when it comes
Exactly.
to additional
Yeah.
certifications and qualifications. And as we talked about having a contractor's license or even touching on the point about being a contractor, I could physically feel all the home inspectors in the industry cringe, or at least a certain set of them, because for many years, for decades, we've always said it has to be completely separate and has to be objective. It does have to be separate and objective. But every SOP that I know of, every state SOP, international SOP, ASHI SOP, none of them include things that aren't tied necessarily to a home inspection. So, for instance, you mentioned contracting. I know a lot of people, a lot of inspectors out there have contracting businesses, and they do anything not associated with a real estate transaction. So, for instance, in New York State, you're not allowed to work on a home within, I think it's 30 days of close of escrow or something like that. I have to go back and look at the exact wording, but it said close of escrow. So, if there's never escrow, i.e., no transaction, there's no law
Yeah.
that prohibits you from working on the home. And that's what contractors do. They do
Yeah.
walkthrough inspections and then they do work. I know home inspectors that are doing that in an ethical way. But also, there's things like wood destroying insect.
Yeah.
Pest control has nothing to do with any standards of practice of any home inspection anywhere that I know of. Mold, completely separate. I know home inspectors
Yep.
that'll do a home inspection, then they'll do the mold assessment or remediation, depending on the process of their
Yeah.
municipality, and they're doing a fantastic
Yeah.
business that way.
Absolutely. I know a lot of inspectors who have diversified by opening up termite pest control companies out here. Now,
Yeah.
California is a little bit different in that we can't do wood destroying inspections the way you can in other states. Out here, it has to be a licensed pest control company. And so a lot of the home inspectors also own termite companies out here, so they're
Mm.
able to do that work as well, and that's a great way to diversify. Now, having a contractor's license, I think personally, just from experience, that it behooves home inspectors to have a contractor's license, regardless of whether they're in a licensed state for home inspection or not. Because, like I said, it opens up opportunities that you normally wouldn't have, like doing balcony inspections. Another example here in California, another law that passed is that if you have an ADU, i.e., a converted garage, and it's not permitted, the law says that the state or your local city is required to approve your permit to legalize that ADU, assuming you pass a certain checklist of things that need to be done. And that is established by having your property inspected by a licensed contractor. A licensed contractor. And because we have the infrastructure and we have the inspectors already in place, it is yet one more opportunity meeting, our licensing and our preparation. And so, yeah, there are many verticals that you can go for. And I just think that, we spoke about the last time that I was on, the corridor principle is that if you're moving down this corridor, you're going to have all these doors opening on either side of you that you can't see unless you're moving forward. And these opportunities will not open up unless you're actually moving forward, unless you're prepared, I should say. And some of them won't open, some of them will, and some of them you'll open them and you're not going to want to go in.
So let me ask you, Tony. You mentioned several times having a contractor's license, and I think that's a great benchmark for why having additional qualifications ready and available. So when the opportunity comes up, you can take advantage of it. But specifically talking about contractor's license, what qualifications could maybe a home inspector get in a state that doesn't have a contractor's license? Like here in New York, you slap a sticker on your truck and go out with a hammer, and you can call yourself a contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, I think I would recommend ICC. ICC
Mm.
helped a lot, because ICC will give you the credibility of doing pre-drywall inspections and new construction inspections, and that opens up the doors. And though the doors is fairly open in most states already, it also gives you that credibility. It gives you the edge over some other inspectors when you can say, "Hey, look, I'm an ICC residential building inspector, not just a home inspector."
I think that's a fantastic point you just made. Um, because even though we love to say in our industry we don't inspect for code, code's always changing. Your house
Hmm.
was built 10 years ago, so it's not going to be modern building code. Knowing the code just in and of
Hmm.
itself gives us credibility. But you walk into a room with a couple of contractors and an engineer, and they're just like, "You're just
Exactly.
some home inspector," and you're like, "Well, actually, I'm ICC certified. Let me mention these three code violations and then talk to you at your level about what you're talking about." You instantly kind of
Exactly.
own the room, don't you?
Absolutely. And it goes a long way to, like I said, setting your credibility and getting repeat customers. If you have clients that deal with new construction, or realtors that deal with new construction, or even in commercial work, if you get a real commercial broker, not a resi-mercial, um, once you get their respect, you are on speed dial for them. And we've been lucky to do that here with a couple of commercial brokers. And uh, they'll call and ask for an inspection on an apartment building, for example. Not once do they even ask, how much is this going to cost? It's because we already established that credibility with them.
Man, that's a fantastic point. So when we walked into this podcast, I was wondering, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of states don't have licensing for contractors, but what kind of qualifications? But that especially is good for multiple verticals when you can kind of stand in the room and say, I have the right qualifications, not quote
Hmm.
unquote just the home inspector qualifications. And just a quick example, and I tell this story a lot. I just told it yesterday. One of the inspectors that I work with, when we first started doing septic system inspections, we learned all the regulations, state SOPs, and SOP with all these organizations. Whenever an engineer, I say whenever an engineer, it's happened a couple of times. They're like, "Oh, you can't do that," or an agent's like, "You can't do that," or somebody's like, "You can't do that." An agent even brought it all the way to the state. They can't do this. Here's our paperwork. Here's this paperwork. Here's that paperwork. Here's our
Exactly. Yeah.
qualifications, and here's our process. To the point where the state even came back, and I've told this story before. They said, "No, they're in their right," and they pinged the engineer, and they're like, "This is going in your file. You're working outside of your jurisdiction. Leave these guys alone." So just knowing it, but let alone
Yeah.
having the qualification. Here's the piece of paper that says I'm ICC certified. I know the codes. I know what's going
Yeah.
on. Here's the problem.
Yeah. And I've had several opportunities where people will call me specifically because they know that I'm ICC certified and a general contractor. In particular, I remember one that was having trouble with their contractor during a renovation of their house. And so contractor walked off site. They're trying to go after their bond. It turned into a legal issue. And so they wanted somebody who had the qualifications to go in and do the inspection so that they can move their case forward. I ended up not taking it because I didn't want to get involved in a legal battle. But uh, my point is that that opportunity wouldn't have come to me unless I had those things. And so, like I said, I think that it behooves home inspectors to seek some of these additional certifications, or to get a contractor's license, regardless of the home inspection license, or on top of the home inspector's license, not regardless. Because it does, it lends to the credibility, number one, and it opens doors that you normally wouldn't have open.
Yeah. And a lot of times we start to worry about liability. Like, okay, say we become ICC certified and then we're inspecting a home and we're working under a different SOP. And then people are like, your website says you're ICC certified. I'm going to sue you. I don't know how many times on this. Yeah, you just chuckled because I don't know how many times I've said on this podcast, stop worrying so much about liability. I've been doing this for 20
Yeah,
years. I forget how long you've been doing it, Tony. I've never
yeah,
gone to court. I've had a couple of people grumpy and then it just goes away. And we've done, I don't
yep,
know how many thousands of inspections. It's not that high
yeah.
liability comparatively.
It's not. When I first posted something on Facebook about 2 years ago about doing balcony inspections, I got a slew of people saying, "Oh my God, I would never do that. The liability's too high. Why would you want to do that?" And 2 years later, never had an issue at all. And I know it's going to drop off a little bit, but never had an issue at all. I checked with the insurance company. The insurance company, they're like, "Yeah, go to town on it." It's no different than a balcony inspection you would do for a home inspection. And so, it's sometimes it's getting out of your own way and letting the fear of liability or failure or whatever it may be dictate what your actions are going to be. And just, sometimes the best education comes from failure.
Hmm.
And, you try it. If it didn't work, it didn't work. But I don't worry too much about liability. I know that the insurance company, I always check with the insurance company first, and they say it's okay. Let's do it.
Yep. Same thing with when we got into mold inspections when New York State came out with laws for that. I remember people walking out of the class, home inspectors, that's too much liability. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, is less liability than the rest of your inspection? And if there's mold, there's still going to be mold, whether or not you have the qualifications. But if you get the qualifications, then you're going to know better what to do. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
see the problem with it personally. But I like how you also mentioned commercial inspections, and I still feel like this is the golden age of commercial inspections. It's when not it's not a saturated market yet, and it's transitioning away from all the engineers and stuff like that to commercial inspection companies. So I still think it's golden age. They're going to want more than a CCPIA certification, and I hate saying that because I love CCPIA. I think
Yeah.
everyone should join it. I don't get any money from it, and in fact, I might even get a little flack from it. I have no idea, but realistically, I just think it's the best organization practically. But on paper, you're going to have engineers saying, okay, we need a guy to go out and inspect this 30,000 square foot warehouse. They're going to look for some oomph in your credentials. They're going to want
Absolutely.
something. And
Yeah.
they're also going to want to
Yeah.
talk the talk. Like, you can't say, well, this heating unit is bigger than in a house. If you say that, you've lost all credibility. You're going to need to say,
Yeah.
okay, well, here's the BTU, and you need to be able to talk about it at their level. What other kind of certifications and qualifications besides a contractor's license or ICC certified do you think are valuable for inspectors right now?
It's not, as far as commercial goes, it's not so much the certifications. Obviously, if you have an ICC certification, you have a general contractor's license, it's going to go a long way. If you ask a lot of commercial real estate brokers what ICC is, they probably would be able to tell you, honestly. Um, there are organizations like BOCA and BOCA, which I can't remember what it stands for at the moment, but these are like the building engineers that maintain these large skyscrapers and the large projects. And that's one certification. Of course, yeah, like I said, ICC helps. Having a contractor's license for me, as far as commercial work goes, that's probably had the biggest impact. Even though I haven't done construction work in 10 years, I still keep up to date with codes and everything else in the industry. You have to be educated. You can have a license, but if you don't know squat, it's going to be really quick before somebody realizes that. What I do, the way that it helps me, these qualifications is, I mean, you'd have the qualifications, but if you don't present them properly, they're not going to mean squat. So the way I do it for large commercial property, quotes that we give is we do a very formal proposal. And this is what real commercial brokers are looking for. They have a standard of what they're looking for, and my close rate is 80-90% on these when I send out a formal proposal. And on that proposal is a form cover sheet. It is the scope of our standards of what we do, how we do it. And then I follow that with my resume on the next page. And
Mm.
this is where I take advantage of this because my resume is, I put all of these qualifications there. And then I'll put, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. And then below that will be, okay, these are the additional services that we offer. And 9 out of 10 times, when it gets approved, they'll come back and say, yeah, we're approving it. And we also want this, 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 and that. And one of our biggest add-ons right now for commercial is accessibility assessments. Anybody who's buying a commercial property wants to know if there are any issues that might lead to a lawsuit. And so, can you do an ADA assessment? And so, a certification, CCPIA, I love CCPIA. The more certifications you have, the better. But one of the ones that they offer is accessibility. It's a certification. So if you can offer that, it literally doesn't take more than about 30-40 minutes onto what you're doing, and you're charging the equivalent of a whole other home inspection for doing that.
So you mentioned a couple of gold nuggets in there that I want to talk about just from a marketing standpoint. A year or two ago, we had Ben Grimico on, and he talked
Mhm.
about marketing fractions and borrowing respect. So you do both of those with your
Okay.
proposal. So not to diverge into a different subject, but anybody who does commercial
Yeah.
proposals should go back, rewind this, and listen to what Tony just said. He did two things that are very important for a commercial proposal. So toppling the fraction is customer expectation is the bottom of the fraction. So there's two numbers, top number, bottom number. So let's say that's 100. CCPIA qualifications might get you 10. Then you get another 5 for having a website. Then you get another 5 for being this or being that. What you're trying to do is to get to not 100, but the highest number possible over their expectations so that the top number is bigger and it topples the fraction. So what Tony did with his proposal, and I love how you just said that, because you know how many guys ask me how to do a proper proposal? I'm going to just take that little sound bite and just play it for them. Give them everything you're going to, all that stuff, and then give them all your qualifications, then the price underneath there. So they have to look past this giant list of your qualifications or your team's qualifications and all this other stuff. So that's toppling the fraction. By the time they get there, they're like, all right, I get it. But you also borrowed respect. So if you belong to the more organizations you belong to, the higher the likelihood that they're going to recognize at least one or more of them. So I'm more likely to buy a box of cereal if it says Cinnamon Flakes by Kellogg's, because I'm like, oh, I like other Kellogg's cereal, so I'm going to try this. So they borrowed the respect of their brand to sell a new cereal. That's why you often see Kellogg's to make sure that hey, this is from us. So if I respect CCPIA or if I respect ICC or any of those organizations that you mentioned, and you're a member, you automatically have a measure of respect for me borrowed from that organization, even though I don't know you. So that in of itself is one of the best reasons why you should do everything that you're saying here, Tony. Have a contractor's license if that's available in your area, be ICC certified, get all these other additional certifications, topple that fraction, borrow respect. And what did you say your close rate was?
It's going to be 80-90% on commercial proposals when we issue an actual formal proposal. Now,
Yeah.
on the smaller projects, the mom and pop, small little strip mall, um,
Yeah.
they don't want to see a 10-page proposal or a 6-page proposal or whatever it is. They want to see a 1-page And that we just program into ISN, which is what we use, and send email, and it says, okay, here's what we do, here's our qualifications, here's the additional services, and it's a one sheet email, and that works well. On the larger projects, there's a certain expectation from a professional commercial broker of what they're used to seeing, and if you meet that, then it improves the possibility of them saying yes.
And so, taking this back to, we're a home inspection podcast, and a lot of us home inspectors are like, I don't see how any of that's going to maybe help me win a job in home inspection. What are your thoughts
Mhm.
on that? Do you think it will help or not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the more qualifications, and it's a little bit of work, and I get it, to get some of these different things and get a contractor's license. But it does, in my experience, anyways, it has helped me tremendously over the years, even for home inspection. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a realtor talking to their client, and they say, "This is Tony. He's a home inspector, and he's a general contractor."
Hmm.
And so it has helped tremendously. Like I said, and it also opens a door for other verticals, which is where we started the conversation of, you know, when home inspections slow down, and they always do. Our economy right now is fluctuating, and we're hoping that things are going to bounce back in the next few months. And I love your podcast about that, by the way.
Thank you.
And but in the meantime, people have gotten creative with termite companies, with septic repairs. I
Hmm.
heard that one recently as well, and a whole variety of different things. And in my book, I put um, a full blown blueprint on how to start a business for residential properties, which borders kind of on having a contractor's license, but not really. It's more of a maintenance thing, and which is easily achieved if you're a home inspector. I've heard of guys who hang Christmas lights. So
Oh, yeah.
that's a big business, apparently. I have to look into that, but yeah, I think the key point is to A, get out of your own way. B, think outside the box. Look for those opportunities. Talk to other home inspectors. But more importantly is be prepared.
Hmm.
Like you said, it's better to be prepared and not have that opportunity than have this golden opportunity come by and you're not prepared.
Yeah, and I think fear is what stops us from doing a lot of those things. I don't want to get my pest certification because what if somebody's going to expect more out of me in the inspection, blah, blah, all this other stuff. Typically, it's going to be fear. But what's interesting too is the home inspection pricing over the past few years has stagnated again. It
Yeah,
went up. So I watched the numbers. It stayed around. I'm not going to say the numbers because I don't have them right in front of me, but it stayed around the same for like a decade. And then
yeah.
like 7 years ago, I started to see them go up for the first time. And I got excited. I'm like, yay. And now over the past 3 or so years, they've stagnated and in some markets gone down. They didn't really
Yeah.
go up that far. We have literally, with inflation, never made less money as an industry per inspection, per hour, per bit of effort. And we're doing more and making less. So there's got to be ways for us to expand to charge more because we do hit a ceiling. I'm always talking about charging more and delivering more, but eventually we hit a ceiling. No one's going to pay $2,000 for a really awesome home inspection when they can get a decent home inspection for 500. So we're
Yeah.
going to hit ceilings unless we're in an uber rich area. But when it comes to that, we have to be able to be willing to go outside our comfort zone. So maybe we came from a construction background and we got into the inspection industry because we didn't want to do that stuff anymore. So it feels like a reversion when maybe, after our state SOP says you can't do that work on a house for 30 days. Well, okay, it doesn't say anything about gutter cleaning.
Yeah.
But a guy gave me a quote
Yeah.
on one of the properties I own, and little ranch house. not much in the way of gutters, $400 for 2 hours. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. When you count the home inspectors, the work they do before, after, and all this other stuff, he's making more than most home inspectors.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like less overhead, less stress. He just cleans up the gutters and he's gone in 2 hours. You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah. I'll give you uh, a quick synopsis of the business plan that I was talking about of home maintenance. It's the business model is a recurring um, billing where you go out to a property and to a house. Now, mind you, you've already done the home inspection. This is the little gray area of whether you can or you can't. You've done the home inspection. You're done. There's no reason why, a year from now, you can't reach out to these people who just bought a home, and particularly young professionals who don't have the time to maintain their house, and say, hey, for X amount of dollars, we will come out to your house and do this package of maintenance items, cleaning the gutters, touching up paint, caulking around your doors, your windows, trimming a tree branch away from your roof, replacing your HVAC filters, um, cleaning out your dryer ductwork. There's a whole list of things that you can do. None of these require licensing, and none of them is a conflict with doing a home inspection. And the
mhm.
beauty of that business model is a recurring thing that once you sign them up, they're going to be billed every 3 months or every 6 months or whatever it is. And you can get a college kid to go out there and knock these things out in an hour. And, it's one of those things that I have not actually done yet, but I have the written plan. Like I said, it's in my book. I have the written plan for it, which at some point I know I'm going to. The company is still growing, and I'm putting all my eggs in the inspection industry right now, whether it be commercial or residential. But at some point, I know I'm going to execute that plan.
Well, it's a successful business plan because I've seen it. I've seen other inspection companies do that same thing. So we think about it. Let's say we're the average home inspector and we do 200 inspections a year. That's 200 leads a year. How many maintenance companies would kill to have 200 new homeowners to market to say, hey, would you like your gutters cleaned, your leaves raked, and all that stuff? And you mentioned something specific: ARR and MRR, annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue. We
Yep.
often don't think about our exit strategy. When we go to sell our home inspection companies, they are not worth as much as we think. So I've seen guys sell their very large inspection companies for for a decent amount of money. But to be honest with you, I've seen there was a guy I know. He sold his inspection company, and it was big for $1 million. Okay, cool. So he got
Yeah.
700,000 after taxes. That was less than he made in a year. So
Yeah.
even the big ones, you don't really have much of a sellable product. And in fact, what happens is another guy I know, he sold his inspection company for $5,000. All they wanted was the domain name and the reviews. He had 5 guys, decent sized company, but couldn't sell it for anything because they're like, once you're gone, there's nothing. Annual recurring
Mhm.
revenue makes it 3 to 8x what you make per year. So if you sign up, let's say 50 of those people a year, and it's $1,000 a year, that's $50,000 a year. You do that for 5 years, and hypothetically, you're going to have $250,000 of annual recurring revenue, ARR. When you go to
Yep.
sell your company, you sell those contracts along with it. So not only does your inspection company become more valuable, because now it is also the lead generator, but you own your own marketing company. You get paid to market for your maintenance company. And then you get to sell that for, let's say, 5x. So now you make
Yeah.
$1.5 million on your $250,000 a year business. Those are very modest numbers. That's where,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where you're going to be able to exit properly.
Yeah. And even if you exit the home inspection business, because somebody once asked me, when are you going to retire? I said the day before the funeral. This is because the business model is so simple and it's recurring income. There's no reason why you can't have somebody manage the business in quote unquote retirement or semi retirement and have that, recurring income coming in during your retirement. And you can have somebody managing that business. It's not a home inspection business. You can retire from the home
Hmm.
inspection business. Or, like you said, you package it all up and it makes your home inspection business that much more attractive when you're exiting.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why so many software companies, not us, want everybody's data. That's
Yep.
why they're out there trying to get as much data as possible, because you know what they do with that data is, okay, we have the data from 15,000 home inspectors. We're going to sell them everything. We're going to sell the leads to people to sell furniture, moving companies,
Yep.
maintenance companies, contractors. Oh, that report said that there was a roofing issue. Guess what? You have 3 quotes from roofers. They're doing that. If we want to own our own industry, we need to make sure that we do it within the bounds of the law. So our specific state or province, check with an attorney. But
Mhm.
very likely we're going to find that unless we're working on the roof, which we shouldn't do, likely cleaning leaves and power washing house has nothing to do with a home inspection, but it's stuff that people
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. And we own those leads. And you mentioned, okay, we have the leads from the people that we did the inspections for, but we also have the leads of all of the realtors who can continue recommending you for example, the maintenance business that I just mentioned. They can continue recommending you. So, I mean, it is very scalable. And, I think my point is that there's a lot of different angles which we can use our qualifications. But the more qualifications that we have, i.e., ICC, CCPIA, having a general contractor's license, the more of these that we have, the more of these opportunities that are available to us. And so,
Yeah.
like I said, this time of the year, pretty much all home inspectors are saying, "Hey, what can I do to keep my guys busy during the slow season?" And it's like I said, in my opinion, anyways, it's a matter of just getting out of your own way, is that fear that we just talked about, and being prepared.
Yeah. And I think basically the point that you're getting at is when it's slow, it shouldn't be slow. When it's slow, you should be hitting that computer, hitting the classrooms, and getting every qualification and every bit of knowledge that you can get. And consider things that we might not have considered before. So, is there a class going on about blower door testing? I hate blower door testing. I still think it's one
Mhm.
one of the most annoying things that you can get into and doesn't pay enough. But hey, do you have a week off now and there's a class going on? Doesn't hurt to have it, because even if you never use it, you'd be like, I understand how this works. Then when you're doing the final test, the final inspection on a phase inspection before they do the blower door test, my municipalities, they do it for C of O. Now you can say, oh, hang
Yeah,
on, I caught this and caught that. Then that agent says, oh, well, you know, Tony and Ian, they catch those kind of things before everything goes down, so you don't get caught by the town. That stuff just snowballs into opportunity, but we never have
yeah,
it if we don't get it.
absolutely. Here's another one here in California. It's actually probably the western half of the United States. I did some research on this. The western half and Florida of the United States is in a high fire zone.
Hmm.
And particularly in California, it's like you saw the fires that sadly happened at the beginning of the year here. And so there's another opportunity there that doesn't require a lot of effort, but having that NFPA certification, for example, which is not hard to get, open the door to doing home hardening inspections. Fire. You tell most people, we offer a home hardening inspection, and they're like, "What is that?" So we're kind of rebranding that into a fire prevention inspection, particularly when it comes to wildfires and how to prevent your house from burning down if there's houses burning down, even a mile away from you. And so again, another opportunity if you're in slow season. What can I offer that's, it didn't cost me anything to get an FPA certification. And now we have a different service that we can offer.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning that last time, and actually somebody else brought it up on a different podcast after you had brought it up. It's a service that we're for in that part of the country, or even in Canada. Canada has a lot of wildfires. it
Yes.
might be something that we want to really sit down and say, okay, this is a service that people are either going to think about or should be thinking about. How do I get into it? And how do I do a good job at it? But listen, Tony, one more time, because we're running out of time here, but what's the name of your book again so that the whole audience knows?
Beyond inspections, a,
Beyond
a guide to
Inspections.
growing your home inspection business. Yeah. Luckily it's done well. It was released at the beginning of the year, and it's just 27 years of, you know, uh, just the ups and downs of a home inspector. I like to think I learned something along the way. They say, the first time it's a mistake, the second time it's a choice. So I try not to make the same mistake along the way.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your mistakes and your successes with us. I say this a lot at the end of a podcast, but to have people like you on the podcast that share all of their mistakes and successes and where the industry is headed and where we can expand our business, I mean, that's information you can't buy. That's information that is given to people that are willing to share their wisdom like you. So thank you, Tony, for sharing your wisdom with us
Mm,
today and helping us to look at things a little
mm.
bit differently, especially as we go into the slow season.
Well, thank you, Ian. It's always a pleasure.
Yep. We'll have you on again, but beyond inspections, Tony, thank you so much. And we'll have you
And
back
Ian,
on soon.